Hey, everybody.
Hi,
I'm Alana.
and I'm Tamara.
And welcome to podcast
Primas.
We do that again.
The oh so important act of forgiveness. What does it mean to you? What experiences or people in your life do you find hardest to forgive? These are the questions we asked each other that led us to share stories that have challenged us the most, but gave us the opportunity to truly learn about the depths of forgiveness for another and for ourselves. Like all the best practices in life, forgiveness is a choice that can be so hard, but one we must continually and consciously make for the ultimate well-being of ourselves and those around us. Don't believe us? We share some scientific data to prove it and some spiritual wisdom that speaks to the soul. In an effort to keep things consistent, we end the show with what we have dubbed our bestie banter before saying our goodbyes until the next episode. We hope you enjoy and thank you for being here.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm happy that we have little microphones.
I know. Yay.
I'm trying to move away. I'll be Celine Dion with the mic.
So this is episode 7 of Podcast Primas. I cannot believe this. And what is so funny, if you have been following along and listening to all our episodes up until this point, this week is actually in real time the week that we launched our podcast. Mm-hmm. We launched it this past Tuesday. Mm-hmm. It is now Sunday. So it's been super cool. We've been getting really awesome feedback and a lot of love from our family and friends, and a lot more listeners than what we were expecting, which is like amazing.
Really cool that we've had that much support. I think you and I in the previous episodes have mentioned our listener or the few listeners that we have. And so it was such a nice response.
Yeah.
And especially the nerves that come with releasing something that you put so much time and effort into and
personal.
Right. And we get real with things. So you do have that little bit of like, oh my goodness, what if we get the most horrible response or people are mean or absolutely no one listens to it. So that was quite a nice response and making us feel a lot better about doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of really good constructive criticism too, which was really nice and valuable. Like we had a lot of feedback that was delivered with love. So thank you for that. But a lot of things that we can use and moving forward. And what's cool about this whole process is that we are 7 episodes in. Listeners have only listened to episode 1. So we've already gone through our own journey with this and have evolved in our own way.
Just observing ourselves and going, geez, I see that.
Right.
I would like to listen better or my response a little bit less if I can help it, be more aware, timing, all of it. So like you said, for those of you who gave us great constructive criticism,
we're so thankful.
Yeah. And luckily a lot of it did line up with things that we did already see. And there were some that were really cool points that I didn't think of.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep it coming. We love it. Only love in this space though, guys, please. So today's episode is about forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
What is the song?
Even if you don't love me anymore.
Oh, how powerful.
I know.
Not our voices, the message.
I love that we both remembered that song.
Yes, I remember it, but I don't know who sings it or like, I know. Such a powerful thing in life to be able to forgive. And what a beautiful journey within yourself to realize that it is for you and not the other person. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'd like to open today's episode with a quote from Marianne Williamson. She says, the first step in forgiveness is the willingness to forgive. If you can state, despite your resistance, your willingness to see the spiritual innocence, the light in the soul of one who has harmed you, you have begun the journey to the deep and unshakable peace. And a lot is said in that one very long sentence, but I really loved that quote by Marianne Williamson and wanted to open up our space today with that.
like you said, there's a lot that is covered in that short quote. Yeah. I had to read it a few times and kind of sit with each part of it, but very beautiful. I'm a fan of her words and her delivery and her viewpoints. So nice choice.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right. So let's just go right into it. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to ask you, Alana, first question of the day.
Okay.
So I'm going to frame this question in the sense of, what does forgiveness mean to you, and how has your journey been with forgiveness in your life?
Okay. Luckily, I got to see this question yesterday when you sent it to me, and it took me a little while to really think of, stop with those a distinct story or a distinct moment, or this time in my life is very clear where I had these realizations about forgiveness. And I ultimately landed on, number one, I feel, and maybe some people in my family or close friends might disagree, but my self-awareness that I do have, of myself, I don't feel like I'm someone who holds on to grudges as far as I can remember. I don't know if that's a personality trait with other people, I should say. The thing I do tend to hold on to is not necessarily guilt, but the feeling bad and the lack of letting go or forgiving myself for certain things. That's where I find it a bit harder. But back to the first part of this question, I think the biggest influence in my life as to what taught me about the importance of forgiveness, and not only how it benefits me and my soul and my well-being, but also I do want to do it for the other person as well, because you can forgive someone without them knowing that you forgive them.
For sure.
But you can also forgive someone and let them know, I forgive you, and you can release any feeling that you have between this rift between us as well. So I'm not only freeing myself, but if you're holding on to anything, please free yourself from it as well, knowing that I'm not holding on to it.
Right.
So my viewpoint is, yes, ultimately it is what's best for myself, but I do like to free other people of that burden as well. With forgiveness. And where I learned this was the church. And I know a lot of people that I do know have a wound with the church. It's a very sensitive subject for a lot of people that I do know.
Yes.
And luckily for me, the way that I remember learning about forgiveness was not, hey, you need to forgive others and forgive yourself or else you're going to hell. And if you don't forgive, then no way it's not heaven or hell or this. I wasn't taught that you do it because you're fearful of hell. I was taught that you do it because it's the right thing to do. And I was taught that you do it because we do all things from love. And I was taught that you do it because you believe in a higher power, God, Jesus, universe, whatever you want to call it now. You believe in a higher power that has a larger control over things than you do. And you trust in that, and you give it up to that, and you trust that it's going to work out, and it's a lift off of your heart, and it's a lift of that burden in your life, and you give it to God or whatever you want to call it. That's what I was taught.
Right.
And luckily for me, and the church that I went to, I'm not saying it was perfect, and there were things. I'm no longer a church goer. And if that's who you are, great. I have no opinion on what you choose to do with your life, or how you choose to live your life, or what you choose to believe in. That is completely your choice, and I have no opinion on that.
It goes for both of us.
Yes. For myself, I no longer am a church goer for different reasons. I think I believe in so many other things outside of what I believe the confines of religion is for my personal life. And I don't want to live in those confines anymore. But at that time in my life, that's where I think the big lesson of forgiveness first came from.
Cool.
To answer that question. I would like to now turn that same question over to you. What does forgiveness mean to you? Or was there a certain era or time in your life that the true meaning of forgiveness rang true, or it was a realization or a aha moment in your life?
Yeah. So for me, it was an era in my life that really affected me. I think that I was always kind of aware, not always, but generally aware that like holding on to something just didn't feel good in general. Going through what post life looks like after losing someone. I lost my father when I was 20, and things were very difficult between my mother and I after that. And we went through a really rough time, a very, very rough time. And there was a lot that I had held on to after losing my father and having to be in a space where I didn't feel understood or cared for or really loved at times. And it weighed heavy on my heart so much. And it took years, like really years, for me to realize that I had been holding on to it. So it's not even like I was consciously like, I'm never forgiving her for what she did to me. And it wasn't even like that. It just that it did weigh heavy on me. And I just evolved in my life to live this way now. Like, this is just how it is now. And I just learned to just accept that that's the way it was, and didn't realize that there was definitely a step of forgiveness that had to be made in order to fully heal and move forward. And I moved away. Well, I grew up on the Big Island, and I moved away from the Big Island when I was 24. It was a couple months shy of turning 25. And when I moved here and I was able to spend some time alone, I started to actually grieve my father, which was 4 years after he had passed. And I didn't realize that was what was happening until like it was actually happening. I was deep in it. And because I was far away from everything and I wasn't distracted by all the external factors that had to be dealt with after his death, I was faced to really deal with everything.
And you had the space and the freedom, it felt like, or it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so interesting how that happens, like the road to forgiveness and the road of grieving is so interesting and so different for everyone. And that was also a really big lesson to learn, is that it doesn't look the same for everyone.
And there's not one timeline
no,
for everyone.
No, exactly. And I think that was my biggest frustration after my father passed, was why can't we do this together? Why can't we be on the same page about this? Why can't we embrace each other and be a part of this together? And that wasn't the case. And it hurt me deeply. But I came to the realization that that was her journey. And that was her way of grieving. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, that's our journey and that's our story. We did it apart. And I think that's what broke my heart more than anything, is that we had to do it separately. And it ended up creating quite a rift in our relationship for a very long time. But while I was here and I moved to LA and I had time and space, like you said, to really like sit in it, and boy, did I sit in it. It was rough. I did come to that realization in that moment and in that era of my life that I have to forgive her. I have to forgive her for grieving the way that she needed to grieve in that moment, because there was so much more than just grieving happening there. That was so her journey. And she needed to detach from everything in order to do it. Whether it was right or wrong or different, it just was. And I had to just forgive that. It's a tough journey, especially when it's a parent. And you have to kind of flip that, This person in my life has always been there. And I was 20. So yeah, I had been on my own for a couple of years at that point, but I was still essentially
you're a baby at 20.
Kid. Like, yeah, you still need your parents. You still,
I'm 37 and I still feel like totally.
So yeah, I had lost my dad. And then felt like I lost my mom. And I was very angry with her for a very long time. I was very angry. Now I'm noticing my ums. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that road to forgiveness with my mom was a tumultuous and very long one. It wasn't like one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I have to forgive my mom today. That's right. No, it doesn't work like that. And you get triggered, and it, like, even if you think you're on that road, it still like affects you. And there's still moments where you have to practice forgiveness constantly.
Sure. It comes back and you remember something, or you have a memory of like, that was so effed up. That was so not okay. And if it still creates an emotion or a feeling, luckily, I'm assuming you can let them go a little bit faster now.
Totally.
But I think we all have that when someone has hurt us so deeply, and you have those moments of remembering and you just go,
yeah, totally.
Like, what?
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
And then you have to remember, like,
no, we let that go
let
already.
that go.
Yeah.
Really.
Totally. Absolutely. So that actually bleeds into the second question, which I'll ask you now, is, do you still have moments of struggling with forgiveness?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think
it's human.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll have those moments and let them go. And sometimes it'll be a few days before I can go, let this go again.
Right.
Because it resurfaces sometimes. And there's a trigger that happens in life where you go, this is triggering me and bringing this up. It's like a PTSD thing.
Right.
And here it is alive inside of my body again.
How? Why?
And I have to deal with it all over. And luckily, the more you go through it and understand it and have awareness and heal and forgive and all of the beautiful things that come with these lessons in life.
Ooh. So fun.
Yeah. But you remember and you relearn and you reapply them, and it does come up. And for me, it's interesting because the people that I have a harder time forgiving were the people surrounding, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense without me going super specific.
Yeah. Like the people who were directly in your life?
Directly in my life. I have a really hard time. So the person the biggest betrayal in my life.
Yeah.
Right. And I became obsessed with understanding why.
Yeah.
Why did you do this? Yeah. Why do you live your life this way? Why are these decisions that you make? I know these wounds, but what are all of these wounds? I become obsessed with the why, and I become obsessed with the understanding, because if I don't understand, I find it incredibly hard to move forward and incredibly hard to heal. Sense. So I always become obsessed with why. If I can understand, then I can move forward.
Totally.
And so obviously I do that with the obvious person in the situation and try to become compassionate with boundaries. Forgiving and being compassionate with someone, and I know a lot of people know this, does not mean letting them stay in your life.
Right.
And does not mean letting them come back into your life. You can recognize that someone is no good as a friend, as a partner, as a person in your life in general. You can still have compassion and you can still forgive them, and you can still go, not in my life anymore.
Absolutely. Yes. I love you from here. Thank you. Next.
Right.
Bye.
So those things just give you perspective as to how to handle a situation, how to handle a person, how to be more aware in the future, all of those things. But I always become obsessed, obviously, with the main person who gave me or the betrayal was from.
Right.
What I have a hard time understanding now, and these are the people that I genuinely have a hard time still going, like, I forgive you, it's fine, are the people that were supportive of the betrayal and knew about it and just kind of sat back and went like, yeah.
Yes.
Cool. You've been nothing but wonderful to me. You've let me into your home.
And did nothing. I saw it.
I've been part of your family. You have been just quite a nice person to me. I have no reason to sit back and support the fact that someone is betraying you in front of my eyes on a regular basis. And I'm just going to sit back in the name of loyalty to friendship, or how it affects your family. It's a different level of ouch, because yes, I understand why this person did it, because I have a relationship with this person. Right. You were friends. Yeah. You have become family members. Yeah. I don't understand how you're so okay with it, and you didn't apologize to me for it. I didn't get and I don't need one to forgive. Right. Yes. And even the main people won't give you an apology or one that really is sincere. So that comes up for me. And I have a hard time going, I call them minions. Right. Yeah. I have a hard time forgiving the minions. Right. Because what did I do to you, which has nothing to do with it? And I know that. But my human first response is, absolutely. What did I do to you to deserve this from you? I know I didn't do anything to deserve it from the person that actually did the betrayal, but all of this extra betrayal. Yeah. Yeah. It adds a different layer. And no one acknowledges it. It's like, I'm just out of it. Yeah. So that's hard for me. I get that. And that comes up. Yeah. And it's almost harder for me than the very obvious villain, we'll call them, in the situation. Yeah. And I'm very aware of my part in all of these situations. And I'm not saying, oh, woe to me, I am the victim and I had no part. And, my eyes were good for you. Yeah. I see my part in all of these things, and I see where I could have done a lot better in a lot of situations. So by no means am I saying, I'm just the victim in this role all the time, and woe to me. But at the same time, there's things like F you. Totally. No. Yeah. Not okay. Yeah. Yeah. A good solid FU sometimes. Yeah. Really, it's warranted. I support it. Yeah. 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 I get it. And that, I'm sure, affects trust. And not obviously with the people who were involved, but just moving forward. Oh, who you can trust and who you do have an idea. But at the same time, I have to just say this expression of, you have no idea. Right. Yeah. How challenging. Yeah. I'm sure it is to trust anyone. Yeah. That's a very hard thing, and it takes a very long time, and I'm working at it constantly. Yeah. And luckily at a place where I can. Right. I can with the people that deserve it. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. But man. Yeah. That has been incredibly difficult. Yeah. That puts a different kind of hole in your heart. I understand. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Of course. No, it's fine. This is part of it. This is part of it. Yeah. That's the thing about betrayal, right? Is that it's not just the act of the betrayal in that moment. Betrayal, it on every level, small or large, it affects you forever. And I'm not saying like that's going to rule your life and be your identity, as it shouldn't, but there are going to be moments of triggering and moments of learning and moments of growing that will stem from that trauma for a very long time, if not forever. It will. Yeah. And I have to be aware of, this is a trigger. Totally. This is my PTSD. Is this real? And then that becomes our responsibility. Right. Is this my anxiety? Is this my response to this wound? Yeah. Luckily, they're getting more few and far in between, but I have to really have a heightened sense of awareness. Yeah. And sometimes it's very hard to differentiate. And it's really hard to think that only this one person, or in my case, there was a couple of people in my life that I had, but it's hard to believe that it was only them. And it's not going to be this person or someone else, because you never know. I mean, you do know, like, that's the thing, like, you trust and you go, I know. Yeah. Or maybe I don't, but I'm still going to choose to trust. Yeah. Because I have to. Yeah. Because what is the point of having a friendship or a relationship or a partnership or anything if I don't trust this person? What is the point? Yeah. You can't have a healthy relationship without trust. No, you can't. You cannot. Yeah. So I have to. And that's not their burden. No, it's not their burden. So it's my conscious choice when those triggers come up, and I have to remind myself, I am choosing to trust them. Yes. And that's what I need to do. I need to come back to the choice that I am making. Absolutely. To trust them and go, my irrational thoughts based off of my past wounds may be incredibly irrational. And if my worst fears come true one day, I'm going to feel good in knowing that I chose to trust so that I could love and that I could move forward. And that's going to be comforting to me.
Absolutely.
But it is a choice when these triggers come
anyway. Up. Yeah. Yeah. That's a imaginable strength. And I'm so proud of you for having it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I am so grateful that I have people in my life that are worthy of it.
Yeah. And that really breaks apart you trim off the edges that way when you really set that standard in your life and you set that vibration around you, the trimming will fall off on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I just had a vision of, when you like have old cheese.
Oh, old cheese. I thought about a pie.
Like really good cheese, like when like French cheese, and you have to no, I'm not going to go there right now.
It's fine.
So on that note,
oh my gosh, that is so funny.
On that note, I'm going to ask you, do you have moments that you find it incredibly difficult to, I don't remember exactly how the question was worded.
Struggle with
forgiveness, even when it's someone you have essentially already forgiven.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. There are people in my life who I have chosen to cut out for one reason or another and just decided this person no longer serves me for the better and it's fine and it just needs to cut off. And then there's certain people that, not essentially that you can't, because you are able to cut out anyone in your life essentially that you want to, but because we had talked about my mom, I'll bring this up again. My mom is someone that I feel not necessarily I can't, because I do make the choice. I don't want to. She's my mom. And we've worked really hard to set the record straight here. We have worked really hard to get to the best place that we've gotten in a decade now. So I absolutely get triggered. What's beautiful now, which I was never able to do before, and because we've done so much work, and by no means are we ever near perfect or sunshine and rainbows,
things
where
come back around that you think you've already learned. You're like, oh, I'm dealing with this again.
Exactly. It's a constant circle. And it's like you said, a constant choice. I'm choosing to trust you. I'm choosing to have you in my life. I'm choosing to love you. And with those things, you must learn your triggers and heal them in the moment with yourself.
Apply.
Yes. Apply what you have learned. And what I can do with her now is say, yesterday, or this conversation, this moment right now is triggering me, and I'm not finding the words to be able to respond maybe the way you want me to, or the way to make this a happy moment. But I just need you to know that for right now, I need some distance. So we have definitely gotten to that point where I feel like I can communicate that, and she respects it, which, what a journey it has been to get to that point. Like that, for some people that may sound really simple, or for some people they may be like, oh my gosh, how'd you get there? But it was a lot of work with myself, because I found that pointing the finger only gets you so far. Because that hurt me. What you did, what you said, where you weren't, what you didn't do. Absolutely. And all those things are valid, but I found that that's all I was doing. All I was doing is pointing the finger, and all I was doing was throwing the ball in her court and saying, you're the one that fucked up. But my responses and my ability to continue the cycle was definitely my part in all of it. And so I had to learn to change my reactions, to walk away, and to communicate.
Yeah.
And all of that really helped me in all aspects of my life. It definitely helped me with detachment of things that have nothing to do with me. And it's such a freeing thing to have in your life, detachment. And it can definitely get into an unhealthy place of like you detach from everything and then like you got to reel it back in for sure.
And I am not responsible for anything that you're feeling ever.
Exactly.
Where they're yes and
I
no.
did that. I went to the opposite side of the spectrum. I went from taking on everyone's emotions and everyone's state of mind and actions. And then I went, fuck you to everyone. I had a big arrow right when I moved to LA. That was my big fuck you to everyone. And I stopped talking to a lot of people in our family, some friends. I had just broken up with a boyfriend. It was just a big like cut and dry. I'm getting out of here situation. And then when I went through my healing, and I think that was just my way or the universe's way to get me alone so that I could, because I think that was the only way this was ever going to happen, so that I could sit with my healing and actually grieve and go through all of it. And when I started to heal and move forward, I realized I'm so alone. And now there's no one around me because I told everyone to fuck off. And now I'm here by myself, and I did that on my own. So that's when you learn how, okay, we can have these people in our lives and we can move forward with a healthy relationship, with healthy boundaries and communicating what you're feeling. No one's ever going to know that you're hurt. No one's ever going to know that you're hurting them. No one's going to know that. I mean, they maybe should or shouldn't, I don't know, depending on the severity of the betrayal, but communicate, say what's hurting you. However scary that may be. And that's scary. It's scary to say how you're feeling and how someone's affecting you. But once you find that power within you to be able to communicate honestly and with love.
I was going to add that if you didn't. Yes. In a way that someone will actually be able to hear you, which is not necessarily your responsibility either.
No.
But if you can learn that technique of, I'm going to be very clear as to how that made me feel and to how that hurt my feelings, but I'm going to do my best to deliver it in a way where you will actually stop and listen and not just put defense mode straight up.
Exactly. It's not, you shouldn't
be
up in arms about, that used to be me. I used to be loud and crazy and up in arms about things. Like that used to be my reaction to the things that used to make me upset. Like, fuck you to everyone. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't mastered it yet. I try.
Yeah.
But there are still moments where I'm like, could have done that better.
I don't get as much practice. I think having a child really, you have a daily reflection of yourself. It's a constant test of, well, how are you going to handle this situation? How are you going to handle this situation? You know, I don't have that daily reminder. And I notice that gets tested when I'm like in a prolonged situation of living with someone or on a trip with someone or because I live alone. So I know
what are you doing? Forcing you to deal with your shit?
Yeah. I think
a quote from the great Robin Williams.
I love it. Love it. Yeah. So I struggle, but I check in and I have those moments, and it really helps to have support around you. It really helps to like have those people in your life that you choose that, or who you can call. I've definitely called you and been like, I'm triggered right now. I'm triggered. I'm having a hard time. This is really, I am having a hard time with this. And then you can talk it out. And I always visualize it as like a vision board. And I pin things up in my mental vision board. And as long as I can lay everything out and I can look at everything as a big picture and then I can talk to someone about it, then I can go, okay. And I can move on and just like swipe that vision board to the side because I've worked through that vision board of whatever was happening in that moment for me.
It's your vision of understanding.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's really helpful. And I definitely encourage people to find like a visual of whatever it looks like for you to like lay it out in your mind to help with that. Because for me anyway, that helps tremendously. When I have bad thoughts, tennis racket, and knock it right out of there. Those are my visuals. But yes, that's how I help myself moving forward. Last but not least, especially because this is a really big one. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Tell me a little bit about your journey through forgiving yourself.
I am very much still on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you mentioned just a couple minutes ago, I have a daughter.
Yes.
As we've mentioned many, many, many times. And I think any parent can understand the mommy or the daddy guilt. Obviously, I talk to a lot more mommies about this than daddies, but there is a quote unquote mommy guilt that is really difficult. And that's where I have the hardest time forgiving myself. I have, I think, learned with the other relationships or instances in my life where I had done something that I wasn't necessarily proud of the way I dealt with it or whatever it may be. I feel like I've been able to let those go a lot easier when it's your child and it's your heart.
Yeah.
And it's this thing you've created and you care more about than anything in the world. And you have these reactions sometimes, and you have these moments where you go like, you are a monster. And then you look at their face and you go, you're my baby. You're my reason. You're the love. Like, and there are moments as a parent, you just go,
yeah,
that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, you know, some parents really shouldn't have their children and they're at that level. But I have a standard that I want to live up to.
Right.
And I have ways that I want to deal with things on a normal basis. And I don't always hit that mark.
Yeah.
And when you don't, and you react in a way, and usually it's, you know, you have really long days at work and you have personal things going on and the world sometimes feels like it's falling down. And then you come home and your kid is being a kid.
Yeah.
And they don't know all of those things. And then they just poke the bear in this way that like only your kid tends to know how to do. And it turns into a response or a reaction or something that like you go, that really wasn't. But then it's so hard because then I am human.
Totally.
And this is a lot to deal with.
Totally.
And I don't get to hand you off to anybody.
No, you don't.
And I don't, you know, like all of these things. And not like I love I don't necessarily, I'm not complaining about that.
No,
but
of course
you
not.
know, you don't feel like you always get those breaks. And even parents that do have a mother and a father in the house still feel that way. Like
absolutely
being a parent and working, or just being a parent, you very rarely feel like you really get a break.
Totally.
So
I'm sure tag teaming helps.
Yeah. So for me, it's those moments that I'm still working on.
Right.
And when I think back on them, I don't go, that was okay, Alana, because I still go, that wasn't okay. And even if it was just me yelling or me overreacting about something or just being really short in a moment that I didn't need to be that short. I didn't need to do that, you know, but it's a lot. So I'm learning to become more and more patient than I already am. I'm in those moments learning to reward myself for my progress. In those moments, trying to stop and take a breath, which can be very difficult. But I am trying my best to get better and better. And I am proud of myself because I can say that I have gotten better and better.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, every parent's journey.
Yeah.
If you're conscious and willing to try and wanting to be a very present, understanding, safe, supportive, you know, as healthy of a environment that you can possibly provide for your child kind of parent.
Right.
So that mommy guilt is alive and well. And I am learning to be softer on myself. And I am learning to, of course, always hold myself accountable and always have a standard that I am striving to live up to and reward myself for when I do live up to them. But it's very difficult to let go of that because you're hurting or you feel like you're hurting the thing that you love the most in the entire world.
Yeah.
And it hurts you, I think, almost more sometimes, you know? So that's where I struggle with that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take away from the truth and what you're feeling as a parent, but as an outsider, I think you do a phenomenal job of making sure that there's that well-rounded, healthy mindset with accountability. And what you're really good at doing that, I think, especially in our generation, parents didn't always do, is explain why, which is so important, because then they can associate that emotion with a definition, or associate that emotion with a reason why, and that justification is so helpful. I don't think that a lot of parents, again, in our generation, really took the time to say, I'm sorry, which is huge. And especially in the Latin culture, saying I'm sorry to your child is not really a part of the books. Or explain, this is what I was feeling in the moment. And like humanizing yourself to your child is something that's so beautiful that you do.
Thank you for saying that.
And that's going to help her a lot in the future.
Thank you for saying that very, very much. And I agree, because I was a child who felt very confused by a lot of things that were going on in my life. I never really...
You were in an I told you so just because.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that no one ever explained anything, but in hindsight, this is me trying to break a cycle. In hindsight, this is me trying to do better. So I'm not trying to put anyone in my family down.
Well, no, but that's our goal, right?
Right. I'm at peace with it. I'm not angry at my parents for anything. Just let me like preface, Mom and Dad, please don't take this personal. Really, this is just what, so, but it is that. And thank you for saying that, because that is something that I am proud of, that I do.
Well, you should be proud.
I will say sorry. I will let her know that just because you're my child doesn't mean that I get to treat you any different.
Yeah.
Or at any different standard. And I use myself as an example, and I go,
that's huge.
The way that I just reacted right then was an example of how not to react. And this is why it happened. And it wasn't about you, and it wasn't about this. Or if it was something that she was really not being respectful for, I'll say, this wasn't okay. And Mommy has boundaries.
Yeah.
And I don't let people talk to me that way, just like you shouldn't let people talk to you that way.
Exactly.
And so thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
And it is a point of pride that I have, but I also have standards I am still working on, and places I'd like to go.
I get that. Good for you.
So, Tamara. I ask you, was the forgiving yourself? Can you rephrase the question? I can't remember.
No, that's okay.
In my brain, I'm like, how did we say this?
Yes, in forgiving myself. I mean, same as I feel everyone else, and same as you, is that it's a daily work in progress. I think in forgiving yourself, there are so many different levels to it. They could be small things throughout the day, like, oh, I didn't hit that task, or I didn't do this well enough, or I didn't go to sleep at this time and I really wanted to go to sleep at this time. It could be that small, or it could be a reaction to someone around you where you snapped and you didn't want to snap. And I think the key is to acknowledge, to recognize, to fix what needs to be fixed going forward, and then to just have that grace. I think that my forgiveness with myself, even though it's a daily thing, I find it easier. I also don't have children. It's very, it's a whole aspect of life that weighs differently. But I think I'm pretty good at being like, well, we'll change that tomorrow. And tomorrow is another day. And that's okay. But yeah, it's a daily thing for sure. I'll always have moments of, I should have done that better, or it wasn't completed the way that I wanted it to be. Yeah, I think kids have a really interesting way of holding a mirror up to you And it's always my experiences with children that I see the darkest part of myself come out.
And it's beautiful and it's scary and it is the biggest test.
Yeah. I've had a series of very serious, close relationships with other people's children. I don't have children, but I have had other people's children in my life who have all been very close in my life.
You are an ultimate auntie. We need you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was a stepmom for a little while there. I was a nanny. I lived with you guys for a while during the gnarliest part of time. And Laleo was 5 at the time. And we've had this conversation where I had reactions and things towards her that were less than desirable and not how I want to be viewed and not how I want to make anyone feel, least of all a child. And yeah, those moments definitely hit you hard for sure. Speaking of children and forgiveness, I think the hardest journey of forgiveness with myself has definitely everything to do with children. Yeah, this is a heavy one for me because I don't really talk about this a whole lot. And even like the closest people in my life don't really know this about me because it's very, very personal. I'm not going to talk about all of it, like what you may think, but I have this guilt of leaving a child. What is it? Abandonment. Thank you. Gosh, yeah, my brain just stopped. I have this massive guilt of abandonment. I was, like I said, a stepmom for 5 years. I had a stepson that lived with me for all of that time. He lived with us full time. And when his father and I broke up, I kept in touch with him like a phone call a year. And even now I text him on his birthday and he's 22. So it's, he's not really, but I had massive guilt for like being a parent figure in this child's life. And then all of a sudden I'm just not there anymore. And when I was a nanny for these 2 beautiful, wonderful children, and I was a part of their life every day, the way that we cried with each other when I left, it's just so difficult, like creating that bond with a child and then
this space of trust and safety. Yeah, I can understand that.
I just feel guilty, like not being there anymore. And not to say like they need me to be there. Yeah. I'm sure they're doing fine. They're all doing fine. And this is so selfish of me, but I want them to know like how much I think of them and how much I love them. And
I beg to differ. I don't know that it's selfish. I think you probably made such an impact in their life that it's probably a really beautiful thing for them to know that if they don't already.
Yeah.
I think that goes both ways.
On their birthday.
Right.
Like, I just want them to know that I think of them even this once a year, but I do think of them so often. I'm so unbelievably blessed to have Laulea as a part of my life on a constant basis because it's always been the same pattern of like being that close to a child and then not being a part of their life anymore. So, yeah. And my Gigi, my best friend's daughter, my goddaughter, I was a part of her life every single day of her first year of her life. And then I moved here to LA. That was a really hard one. She actually, 1-year-old, climbed into my suitcase when I was leaving. Broke my heart. Yeah, it's very strange feeling. Yeah. But yeah, all of my massive guilt has to do with children and everything related in that subject, for sure. We want to discuss not only our experiences with forgiveness, but why it is so important.
From a scientific standpoint, based off of research and study and data, because our opinion is incredibly important.
Right.
And you should take it into consideration.
Always, every day of your life.
But also, if you need a little bit more credibility,
So we have this this article from hopkinsmedicine.org, and the title of the article is "Forgiveness: Your Health Depends on It."
Mm-hmm.
And this is the interview is with a Dr. Karen Schwartz.
Chronic anger puts you into a fight or flight mode. Yes, it does, which results in numerous changes in heart rate, blood pressure, and immune response.
Huge.
I want to just immune response.
Yes.
So many people don't understand how this affects your actual
immune system.
Yes.
Your state of mind, your emotional state of mind affects your immune system. It says so right here.
Yes.
Hopkins Medicine.
Go Hopkins Medicine.
Let's go.
Those changes then increase the risk of depression, heart disease, and diabetes, among other conditions. Forgiveness, however, calms stress levels, leading to improved health. Forgiveness is not just about saying the words. It is an active process, a choice. I added that. I'm not quoting this properly, in which you make a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings, whether the person deserves it or not, whether they deserve it or not, in your opinion.
That's huge.
And to forgive someone when you don't think they deserve it is a battle. That is a sentence that needed a little bit more of.
I agree.
Because that is incredibly difficult.
It is.
Schwartz says.
Yeah.
Thanks, Schwartz. As you release the anger, resentment, and hostility, you begin to feel empathy. It's true. Compassion, and sometimes even affection for the person who wronged you. Yes, from afar.
Yeah.
Studies have found that some people are just naturally more forgiving. I would like to know more about those studies. Side note. Consequently, they tend to be more satisfied with their lives and to have less depression, anxiety, stress, anger, and hostility. People who hang on to grudges, however, are more likely to experience severe depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Interesting. As well as other health conditions. But that doesn't mean that they can't train themselves to act in healthier ways. In fact, 62% of American adults say they need more forgiveness in their personal lives.
To touch on that it's a practice. Every day it's a practice. Just like anything else that we practice every day to be better at. It's a practice to forgive yourself, to forgive those in your life, to lead a healthier lifestyle, to exercise. Everything, especially your mental health, is a practice and a choice. So I have one more by Light Being Messages. This is by Carol Miller. I really loved what she had to say, and this is definitely much more of a spiritual take on forgiveness.
I love it.
Yes. So we love the scientific facts, absolutely, but Alana and I are also both very spiritual. And
I find they really complement each other a lot of the time.
I love it. In touching on that, I'm going to go ahead and read what Carol Miller wrote because it really spoke to me. The tool of forgiveness is the vehicle to freedom. A soulful path to awaken our high heart, the heart of unity consciousness. Whether in physical form or spirit, communication is always available to assist with the questions that haunt. Communication, huge. All lessons come forward when you are ready to see the lesson and begin the process that forgiveness affords. You must see it. You must want it, right? Allowing true spiritual growth to occur as the capacity to forgive is within reach. We were born from pure love.
Amen.
I'm going to say it again. We were born from pure love.
Ooh.
It is our true nature, for the gracious act of forgiveness takes place in the heart. I love that. A process that clears your soul's spiritual path through the act of compassion to free both souls.
Love that line.
Yes, I was going to say, I want to read that again because
I love
that line really speaks to me and apparently speaks to Lana too. So a process that clears your soul's spiritual path through the act of compassion to free both souls. So as we all are in intricate pieces of the divine puzzle, forgiveness for another soul is that piece. Oof. I love that.
Amen.
Yes. All right. So let's go ahead and finish with our
bestie banter is what we've ended up.
Questions.
Yes, random questions that we like to close our show with.
Yes.
That have absolutely nothing to do with the topic most of the time, but we kind of love ending on a lighthearted, high note. Okay, here's my question. You have one night out all year and you have 8 hours. Obviously, you're going dancing. We know this.
My question was going to be, where are we going dancing?
Right. So if you needed to choose between dancing to 90s, early 2000s hip hop,
nice,
or Afro beats, you got to pick one. What would it be and why? This is a hard question.
It's a very hard question because Alana knows that those are my two absolute favorite types of music to go out and dance to. Dang. I think it would have to be Afrobeats.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Alana and I both we die for Afrobeats. We're constantly sharing music, and I love how much Afrobeats is entering the mainstream because the world needs this music. It's such good vibrational, happy music.
It makes my soul happy and makes me.
But that's the one type of music that I can close my eyes and just move and groove, and all of a sudden it's an hour later and I'm in my bathroom and I'm sweating and I'm like, wow, I just danced for an hour by myself to this music. I cannot ever stop moving to this music. It is so happy and wonderful and beautiful. And
Afrobeats wins.
Afrobeat for the win. All right. My question to you, because you have traveled all over the world, surfing and doing y'all thing. What country would you love to travel to that you have not been to yet, and why?
I've thought about this before because now that if I ever do get to go on a vacation, which hasn't happened in a really long time, I get to choose.
Yeah.
Whereas before, even though traveling around the world was such an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful for the years and years of my life that I got to do this. What a blessing and what an education and what an eye-opening experience it was. And this was before iPhones.
Yes.
And maps.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have any of the technologies that we have today that make traveling a lot easier.
Young.
I was young.
Yeah.
So, but it was what an adventure it was. And I'm not saying traveling is less than now than it was then.
Yeah.
But you had to figure some things out the hard way without this technology. So I think in my brain, I don't want to say it now because now I've thought this for a while and now it's become such this trendy location.
It's all right.
I know it is, but
I get it.
Yeah, it's, before I was like super original with this thought and I'm not part of the crowd and I'm really unique.
Before Instagram took over.
Yeah. The definition of a hipster talking right now. I'm super unique and I'm doing everything different than everyone else, even though we're all doing the same thing in the name of hipsterism. So no hate, just reality in my perspective.
Yeah.
Greece.
I was going to say, is it Greece? Santorini. Whatever.
Right.
Food.
Yeah. I don't know if it's changed much from what it was a few years ago. I have no idea, but I have been drawn to Greece, and my first introduction to wanting to go there, Dad, if you're listening, you're going to love this, is this movie called The Big Blue.
Oh, cool.
And it was an independent film that was made in the early 80s. And it was one of our family's favorites.
Love it.
And my dad introduced it to me and my sister. I've now introduced it to my daughter, who also just loved it without even.
Is it a surfing movie?
No.
Oh,
it's not.
Interesting.
It's about free diving.
Cool.
And it's them traveling to their free diving meets and the stories behind these people's lives. And one of them in particular, his name is Jacques Mayol, and his connection to the ocean and to dolphins. Anyway, it's a beautiful story. That was my first introduction to seeing Greece. And even as a child, a very, very small child, I was like, that looks like a place I want to go one day.
Such a dreamy
and
place.
I still haven't gone.
Yeah.
And maybe one day, I know my mom wants to go as well. Maybe we'll be able to do that. But that's the one place that I love. The food.
It's on my list too.
The ocean looks beautiful.
Yes.
The architecture looks beautiful. the culture seem really like all of it. That's
beautiful.
Yeah. And there's a lot of places I would love to go back to.
Yeah.
I mean,
why I didn't want to ask.
Right. But if somewhere I haven't been yet.
Very cool.
That's my answer.
I'd love to travel with you.
I love travel.
All right. Well, that's that.
That's
episode 7.
Episode 7
and wrap. Forgiveness.
That's right. Forgiveness.
Even
if you don't love me anymore. And also, on that note of harmonics, has nothing to do with harmonics.
Great.
If you don't already,
please
follow us on our Instagram page, podcast_Primas.
Yes.
Or on our YouTube channel, which is now has a handle. They have handles on YouTube now at Podcast Primas. And you can either listen to us on Spotify, Podbean, or you can watch and listen, or just listen on YouTube as well.
While you're cleaning, while you're driving, while you're doing anything, just pop us on and we'll come along for the ride.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. Riding along with you.
Very good.
All right. Love you.
We love you. Have an awesome day, time, week.
Forgive yourself. Try your best to forgive yourself and anyone else. And
know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
We're all in this human journey together.
We are all in it together. Sending much love.
Aloha. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, laugh, cry, scream, sleep, dance, whatever.